This is the Chancellor's Report from 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. Featuring Mark Money, Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And here's your host, WUWM General Manager, David Lee.
Hi, thank you for joining us on the UWM Chancellor's Report here on 89.7 WUWM. I'm David Lee, General Manager of the station, and I'm here today with UWM Chancellor Mark Money. Hi, Mark.
Hi, David.
Today, we're going to be talking about the spot on UWM's campus that was once the old Columbia Hospital, situated on the corners of Maryland and Hartford Avenues. I'm sure many of our listeners have memories of that space, and maybe going to the ER or potentially having a baby there. Maybe even they were born there. Well, today, we're going to be talking about the future plans for that spot. And here with us is Kim Litwack, Dean of UWM's College of Health, Professions and Sciences, and Robin Van Arpen, Senior Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administrative Affairs. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So glad that you all are here for this conversation. So first off, I know our listeners might have some experiences with the old Columbia Hospital. I'm wondering, for all of you, do you all have any memories or experiences related to the old Columbia Hospital? Mark, let's start with you.
Well, I have to say, I wasn't on the receiving end of healthcare, but the great lunches over there were certainly more than sustenance. They were very wonderful, very healthy. And that's what I have my fond memories of Columbia St. Mary's. It was a great lunch spot.
That's great. Kim?
This is kind of an interesting one. We were teaching our nurse practitioner students how to put casts on. And at the end of that, you want to cut the casts off. And we overheated our cast saw and had to go over to Columbia St. Mary's and use their cast saw in the ER to free our students from their casts.
How about you, Robin?
Well, I have the cafeteria memory as well, but I have a little bit more serious memory that in 2008, my mom, who was over at my house a couple of blocks away from the hospital, and she suffered a very serious stroke. And I took her to the ER over at Columbia St. Mary's, and she was admitted. And then to the ICU, she had surgery, neurosurgery there. We were very lucky she was there because they had one of their top neurosurgeons in the hospital at the time. And then she stayed for care at the Sacred Heart Rehabilitation Center after that. So I spent a lot of time there, and it was not exactly the happiest time, but she received excellent care. So I will never forget that.
That's, I think, a really useful kind of grounding in this conversation about changes to the university space, but also how do we drive towards better health outcomes for the community and the role of this project. So thank you for that, Robin. So today, again, we're talking about changes to the campus space. And Mark, can you tell us a little bit about the evolution of facilities generally as we sort of start at the widest aperture for this conversation on college campus and what drives that need for change?
So I'm glad we have an hour for this. Just kidding. April Fools. So I want to just share, before we get into much detail on that, just the expertise that we have on our program today. As you introduced our guests, I'm very fortunate because they are truly the experts who can help us with exactly these issues around facilities evolution and particularly the healthcare. And I think it's wonderful that we're talking about health sciences today because this building, formerly Columbia St. Mary's, actually in the future will continue to provide amazing healthcare through education, through the transformation of individuals who will become healthcare professionals across at least 19 different majors on our campus. But the broader big picture in terms of how space demand and opportunities comes about is really a function of our master planning, our space evaluation, and we look at this over a long horizon, often decades in the planning. In fact, this building goes back to UWM's occupancy and possession going back over 25 years. So it's really got a long life in terms of how we look at it. But the big factors that we look at in that context are the demand through particularly student demography, projections, research needs, and the use of existing facilities. We're very conservative. We're always cautious with state and taxpayer dollars, and we want to use the best resources available. So we've got a lot of sound planning. We look at demand, and then things do change along the way. Sometimes it's technology, sometimes there's growth and less demand. But what we can say about this particular facility is we are today turning students away across a number of different healthcare majors. And this particular project is absolutely essential for the future of healthcare in the state of Wisconsin.
So what's the status of the old Columbia Hospital now? If I drove by right now today, what would I see?
You'd see some renovations, modifications on the west end. Actually, quite beautiful facilities. We've got our Children's Learning Center located there on the ground floor. On the east end, you would see the removal of what used to be the oldest building. We called it Building A, and now it's green space. So we've really got a good core stock. And I will say that a lot of the renovations that have happened to the building, the status of it is that we've done some of the interior, bringing it up to code, because when the hospital had it, it wasn't up to code. It had been grandfathered through that. But for the new owners, us, UW Milwaukee, we've had to bring fire suppression, electrical, a number of other HVAC things more up to speed. And it's not quite done yet, but that's the status of the project right now.
So Kim, let's bring you in here really quickly. So the hospital, I think, used to be a training facility for nurses. And where is that happening today?
It's happening in that building, in
It
that
is?
very same building, in part. We have a new clinical simulation center where we're educating nurses, not only nurses, but physical therapists, occupational therapists, medical lab scientists. We bring our rad tech students up there. We've had our speech students up there, nutrition students, even our sign language students have come up to work in our modified clinical hospital. And we have training classrooms, and we have the equivalent of a small hospital inside an old hospital.
So what's your vision for the space sort of going forward as you think about that?
In the unused space that we hope to renovate, we want to bring all of health sciences together. Right now, the health buildings, we have health programs in 5 different locations on this campus. Students don't practice that way when they become graduates and they go into a hospital setting. They have to work together. And to educate them in isolation doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So the goal is to bring all of the health disciplines together. We will have training spaces. We will have lab spaces. So not only will they be educated together, but they'll be educated in state-of-the-art facilities so that they are workforce ready the minute they graduate.
So you'd noted just now, Kim, health sciences. Can you just talk a little bit about what fields sort of comprise the umbrella of health sciences? Just so I'm aware and our listeners are aware, because it seems pretty broad, right?
It is. Think of any time you've been in the hospital and all of the individuals that you interacted with: physical therapists, occupational therapists, rad tech, radiology technicians, sonography. We're going to have speech and communication science disorders. Public health will be in there, nutrition, kinesiology, and nursing.
So as I'm trying to think through this, where are all of they now? Where are all these majors now? If you have a little bit of training there, and then where is everybody else?
Well, if you know UWM, I'll name some buildings,
Yeah.
and they might sound familiar. If you don't, find a campus map. But we have people in the north, in other parts of the Northwest Quad. We have them in Green Hall. We have them in Endress Hall. We have them in Cunningham, and we have them in the Pavilion.
Got it. So this project really kind of centralizes everybody together.
Absolutely.
That's
Let's
great.
educate them together so that they can work together.
So Robin, thinking about this seems like a pretty big project. What's it take to plan something like this? Doesn't seem like it's super easy.
This has definitely been one of the most challenging facilities to renovate or to bring to construction, I think, that we've ever had in UWM's history. And mainly because it was a hospital. You know, it never served as academic facilities prior to our acquisition of it in 2010. And Columbia St. Mary's knew that it was going to be moving out and consolidating its campus for about a decade before they actually did. So they had stopped putting a lot of investment into the facility. And then we had 6 different buildings on the site, all built with different ages. One of those being a parking facility, and another building which we use for the Honors College now, that is separate from the main facility. But we have this very large 4-building main facility, all with lots of different needs in it. It was very complicated to start to tackle. So early on, after our acquisition, we started with a giant, large study looking at the entire complex and how it could be used in the future and envisioning that. And then we started to pick at different pieces. And early on, we were able to start updating some classrooms, and we built the Children's Learning Center there, which is a wonderful facility. And we started to add pieces here and there while we planned for the largest parts of the facility. And then it was finally in 2017 that we got a project to do some bigger chunks. And through that project, we also moved our student health and wellness facility over there. Took a few years to get to that. We addressed a lot of infrastructure and building envelope issues like bricks that were not in great condition. And that positioned us so that the very last remaining piece of that is to actually renovate it for health sciences purposes and bring all those units from across campus. And that's the final piece. And so from the acquisition of the facility and dreaming to the present day, it's about 15 years of a lot of different planning and work. But because the facility was so complicated to attack, I think we learned a lot over that period of time. And the waiting will pay off in terms of really having a facility that best meets the needs of our health sciences students now.
So you mentioned about 15 years. Where are we in the process right now on today in April of 2025?
Yes. Well, right now, so we essentially brought a very similar project 2 years ago to the state for approval,
Sure.
and we didn't get it at that time. There's always a queue in the state process. We're very lucky that the state builds buildings and renovates buildings on behalf of the UW campuses. That's a great thing to have, but it means you get in line for that. So we've been in line, and we didn't get the project 2 years ago, but what we did get was funding from the state for design so that we were able to take the design all the way to design completion. So that's huge. And that means that we're really close to being able to move it forward to the next approval stages and then construction. So we are hoping that through the state's 2-year or biennial capital budget process, we will get that final approval that we need to move forward to construction. And normally that approval, the state capital budget wraps up around July of every odd year. And so that's what we're working towards right now. And we've received a lot of support from legislators on both sides of the aisle and the governor. And we feel really optimistic that we're totally ready to get to construction. And this is the time to get that project approved and moved forward.
So Mark mentioned a little bit earlier about the master plan, right? And I think when people hear a master plan, they think of something that's going to take a long time to kind of enact, and you have to enact it in phases. And I think also for many of our listeners who may not know, right, that like going through the state budget cycle is also a part of all of that kind of thing that has to happen. Mark, would you say though that I remember that that UWM opened the Jim and Yvonne Zemer Clinical Simulation Center in the Northwest Quad a couple of years ago. Was that the first step in this renovation process, in this whole kind of like process?
Well, so thanks for bringing Jim and Yvonne into this. Their support has been so critical, and they're just some of the greatest people in so many ways. And their gift really helped open the doors to increase support, because that signals credibility. It signals that this is an important project to folks beyond just what the campus's perspective is. So while that wasn't the first step, as Robin had outlined some of the different parts of this, it was very important, both substantively and symbolically. We've had other partners as well. So, for example, GE Medical Systems and other healthcare providers have put in a fair amount of resources and support. There continue to be great partners that really help make a big difference, and Kim could certainly elaborate on those. But the donor support going forward, what we do know about philanthropy, it's increasingly important. And for us historically, that's been a little bit of a challenge, because so many of our wonderful donors love to give to our students and to our programs, and not as much to the brick and mortar side of things, simply because as a public institution, there's an expectation that's supported by the state. But that's changing, and we're going to do everything we can to continue to support that. And fortunately, we've got a lot of good friends that have been able to help us in different ways.
I mean, I think what you're saying, though, Mark, right, is that this is a real sort of opportunity to sort of highlight some of the public-private partnerships of this sort of a relationship.
Well said.
Kim, so what's been the payoff for the Clinical Simulation Center?
I think we are preparing nurses at this point, nurses and now our physical therapists, occupational therapists, et cetera, to be the best providers they can be. We know that about 85% of our students stay in the state of Wisconsin after they graduate, so they become the workforce. And that's important. We know that our state deserves and should have the best healthcare possible. And we produce outstanding graduates, most of whom have jobs before they graduate because of the clinical expertise that they've gained, not only by being educated in state-of-the-art facilities, but also our partnerships with our healthcare facilities that are true training facilities for our students.
You know, this is a question that I think comes up often when we do these chancellor's reports, Mark, that like the programming and the work that we do at the university really helps to create workforce and pipelining, right, for our local employers, and in this case, for our healthcare industry here. Can you all talk a little bit about, and I'm going to start with Kim, but just I want to drill this point home about like having this new health sciences building when we get there. What does this mean for health outcomes for our community?
The better educated the providers are, the better the health outcomes are going to be. We also know that when you put interdisciplinary teams together who are able to be educated together and then collaborate, you get better healthcare outcomes. So we are looking to not only bring in the best educated providers that we can, but we also want to increase the number of providers we can bring into the pipeline. With this new space, we anticipate being able to graduate almost 300 new healthcare providers a year, which means in 10 years, another 3,000 for the state. That's pretty significant. And these are all students who up to this point, we may have turned away because we did not have the space for them. So these are individuals who are interested in becoming healthcare providers, staying in the state, leaving with an outstanding education, and then becoming a very strong workforce.
Kim said it really well, David, but I'm going to add two different things. One is when I talk with CEOs and interact with the leading employers in healthcare across the state, they all get this, and they are all rooting for this facility because they need the bodies. They absolutely need the bodies. We cannot provide healthcare. We're actually having, in some cases, to ship patients to other locations across the state because there simply is a labor shortage. That's how acute this is. The other piece of this is what happens when we do have that reinforced learning on the receiving end as a patient myself, and as we're all aging. Sorry, folks. The reality is the need for increased healthcare capacity, our shortage, the projected shortages, just nursing alone, it's in the thousands, significantly thousands of needed employees. So I think about the need for folks that can work better together. And I look at what happens in our simulation facilities. Thank you again to the Zeemers and to the state of Wisconsin to help support this. This is where the students are really battle ready. They are tested. They're ready to go into the ER, the OR, the rehab facilities because of the types of interdisciplinary experiences. And boy, I'll tell you, we all, whether you have pediatric needs for your kids or the geriatric at the other end or all of us in between, it's really important for our state.
Robin, I know you come at this a little bit from like the finance and administration angle, but you also shared that incredible story about the healthcare impact for your family, right? So your thoughts about what this means for our community insofar as health outcomes?
Yes. I just think that the availability of the modernized instruction is going to be so much enhanced by these facilities. It's really not been ideal that as we've grown organically over time, that we've had to house our various health disciplines in five different facilities. And as Kim said, that's just not the way healthcare is provided now. So the simulation center that is up and running has given us a glimpse into what that can be. And it's been so fun to tour lots of different people through that space to show what the future can look like, but that's one floor in one part of this building. And we will now have 8 floors in that same building, as well as several other floors in 2 other buildings that now will all be working together around the health sciences. So I'm just so excited at the instruction and learning that we can provide in the future, and how UW students will love to come to UWM for that instruction.
I think you also gave a little bit of preview to the next question, which is, so if all of the health sciences are coming under one roof in this renovation, are there other non-health related departments that are housed in the Northwest Quad that'll have to be moved or put someplace else or rehomed?
Yeah. So again, this is a complex facility with
Yeah,
lots of moving
for sure.
pieces, but right now our School of Information Studies is already in its permanent location in one of the buildings. So that was part of a prior renovation. They'll get to stay there. We also have the Children's Learning Center, and our Student Health and Wellness Clinic is located in the facility, and they're in their permanent spaces and won't have to move. We then have our IT function on campus. A lot of IT professionals are in temporary space, and we're going to have to move them around, but they will land in a permanent home in one of the buildings, Building D. And we have a number of smaller areas that are just taking advantage of the open space right now that we'll be moving around for the construction. But because of the complexity, it's going to be done in a couple of phases to ensure that we can move people around. We do not have a lot of extra space on campus. In fact, we're pretty much using all of our available space at this time, other than the empty space in Northwest Quad. And so once we are able to move in, when the project is completed, it's going to unlock a number of doors for us to continue to optimize our space. We plan on ultimately demolishing the old physics building where we currently have classrooms and other areas that we can move into spaces that are being decamped by health sciences. We have a lot of plans for ways that we can be more efficient and provide better space by reusing those spaces that are going to be unoccupied as the result of health sciences leaving. So not only are we getting this great space for health sciences, but it's going to be the key to us being more efficient and better using other spaces in the future. And until that happens, we really can't do that because we have nowhere to put people.
As I'm thinking about the course of the last 2 years of doing these chancellor's reports, and like the role that UWM plays in kind of creating better economic outcomes for our local businesses, better health outcomes in the context of this project, it just really goes to show that the community cornerstone that UWM plays in not only educating our students but also providing a future workforce and maintaining the health of our community is so absolutely important. Thank you all for the thoughtfulness with which we're kind of making these renovations and changes. As our time is running to coming to an end, we do like to end our show here by asking our guests. As our time is coming to an end, we do like to end our show here by asking our guests to share something they read or learned recently that was particularly fun, interesting, or inspiring. And I think today's conversation really lends a good window into at least the inspiring part. Robin, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, I have recently renewed an interest in escapist fiction and have updated my queue at the library for electronic lending. And I read 2 books recently that were really good. One was called God of the Woods by Liz Moore. And another was Tanya French's The Searcher, which I read because she has a new one out called The Hunter. And I wanted to read The Searcher first. Both involve mysteries set in the woods. And they were just really great for just total enjoyment. And I highly recommend them.
I love it. Thank you so much, Robin. Kim, how about you?
Well, I'm a bird watcher and heard a bird this week that I had never heard before, and then went down the rabbit hole of learning about it. And it was the woodcock. And to discover, it's the slowest bird that exists. It's also called a timberdoodle and a mud snipe. And they are going to be peeping, or peenting as it's called, Peent, is this buzz sound that they make at sunset. And that's their mating call. And they will do that from now until the beginning of May. So in the evening, if you hear this buzz in the woods, it's the woodcock.
Kim, I don't know if you hear or listen to our segment on Lake Effect called Chirp Chat, but I think this is something that you might actually really love. It's all about birds and birding here in the Milwaukee area.
Oh, cool. No, I had not heard of that before, but I will check it out. Thank you.
We may need to get you on as a guest and go on like a bird walk with our host of Chirp Chat.
Sign me up.
Chancellor, how about you?
Way to work that one in, David. That was great. So I love interestingly the authors that Robin mentioned. That's really great, Robin. I didn't know we had that shared interest, but I'm also going to play back something that Robin shared with me and our chief of staff here, and that is, when we're talking about health, I think about their engagement with, at least they shared that if you engage in some performing arts type of activity, at least once a month, what the impact can be on longevity. And certainly if you look at the mechanics in terms of, if you dig into that, there's a lot of stress reduction, mental health, a lot of positivity that comes from that. And I'm really excited as I look to my future to have a little more time to be able to engage in those types of performing arts that we have so much in abundance, with over 300 performances on our campus or in the community through UW Milwaukee. And of course, there's so many other arts in the community that we'll be able to all take advantage of. So that's my exciting learning.
I love that, Mark. I think we often talk about, and even in today's show, right, we often talk about the impacts, the hard impacts on health, whether it's through this new health sciences building, the work that people in the health sciences field will be contributing back to our community. But then I also think we often forget that the social, emotional, sort of like soft impacts of health, of what sort of connecting with your community, going out to a play, going out to a film, or even performing, as it were, can have on our health. So thank you for all of those learnings. Thank you for sharing your book recommendations. And Kim, thank you for letting us know about the slowest bird and what they'll be doing over the next few weeks and months. This has been the Chancellor's Report on 89.7 WUWM. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
You've been listening to The Chancellor's Report, featuring Mark Monet, Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. If you'd like more information, go to uwm.edu/chancellor.